Hello and welcome back to LTC Heroes Live by Experience Care. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis. I'm your host. I'm excited to be talking to Cy. We're at the Delaware Healthcare Convention. Cy Stewart is the food and beverage manager at Shipley Living. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Cy, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
Cy, tell me a little bit why you came to the convention today and who's the first person you wanted to hug?
Well, my HR director came, Jamaica West, and also my administrator, Tim Ballas, came as well. I guess when Tim came in the door, I was happy to see him here. If not, I've been here by myself. So I was happy to see him.
Tell me why you got into long-term care, and feel free to get into the details as much, the first day, the first mentor, some story about right then.
Okay. Well, my first community I worked at was, I had a mentor there, and his name was Richard Henninger. He was the exec chef. And the first day he interviewed me, he told me I had the job, which was kind of really weird. Normally when you get interviewed, a day or two later, someone will call you, and he said I had the job. And I asked him why. I've never asked anybody why I had the job. And he told me why I had the job because he said, you are what we need. And then I asked him, what do you mean I'm what you need? He was like, your personality, your energy, and he was just like, your level of expertise. And I was like, okay, all right. Well, just by reading my resume, and then, with him saying that, I had to go and improve myself. That's a tall order. So I think the first day on the job, he gave me a couple cooking demos that I had to kind of do. And since then, meeting a couple of residents, I was like, this is where I need to be. This is who I am, and this is where I can make my mark.
You're obviously passionate about food, but you could be doing that. There's probably 25 sub-industries in the hospitality world that you could be doing it. Why caring for America's seniors?
Well, long-term care is different, and caring for seniors is different than working in a restaurant. And I'm going to tell you how it's different because your customers never change. Every day is like Cheers. If you know the show Cheers, every day is like Cheers. It's like you meet, you don't meet the same person. You actually take care of the same person over and over again, and you kind of get to hear the stories, get to know them, know their families, and their background, where they came from, and things like that. It's different. It's just totally different. And then you start to care about the food you actually cooking. It's not just a menu. It's actually something that you learn their likes and dislikes and things like that. And maybe like Mrs. Smith loves peanut butter and jelly on Tuesdays. Things like that kind of really carry over.
I love that you said that it's kind of like Cheers and your customers never change. I've never heard that. I've interviewed a couple people that are in the kitchen, but never the way you explained it, so I really appreciate that. I'm wondering how long, one day you were in long-term care, you remember your first day, how long did it take for you to be able to start to know that, man, I might be in here for life. I might be a lifer. This place is changing my DNA.
Yeah, I've been in it now for 15 years. So I realized I was a lifer when I started to really learn the residents. I guess within my second week, I was learning all the residents. I was like, wow, this is different. Then I'm going home and telling the resident stories to my family, and and it just changed. It just changed how I felt. And then spending the time with the residents and really sitting down and understanding their lives, their story, of who they were before they came here. It's just different. It's just totally different. It's really words you can't really describe it, but it's truly different.
Tell me a little bit about Shipley and why you like working there. Is it the freedom they give you to be able to make quality? Is it the relationships that you have with your staff? Maybe all of the above? Anything that I'm missing? Well,
definitely everything, all the above. By me being a food and beverage director here at Shipley, it's more so like me growing my team, teaching my team, showing my team everything I have learned over the years. Also, me talking to the residents, and we are a CCRC community at Shipley, so me watching a resident come into our independent living, and then watching them decrease in health, going into our assisted living and our healthcare, they become more like family. And our atmosphere is like a real family atmosphere. You'll see as soon as you come in. We show a lot of hospitality as soon as you walk in the door. It's just different. It's different than any other community I've ever been in. It's just, you just walk in, as soon as you walk in the front door, our staff is just greeting you at the front door. Don't care who you are, a vendor or anything. They're just greeting you. They're showing you hospitality.
I promised that I didn't put this next subtitle in for you, which is key ingredients. You just heard me talk about one of the ways that we need to attract young people into here is to talk about the intangibles. Mm-hmm. If you have a young 15-year-old or 20-year-old who comes up to you and says, you know what, I've worked in 2 or 3 different jobs, I didn't like them, what would you tell them about coming to work in long-term care and coming to work at Shipley that might be like, I'm gonna try my hand at that?
Mm-hmm. Well, you gain life skills. You learn how to care about people, and that's what I learned. Going into long-term care is learn how to care about people. When you're young, you only think about yourself. You're thinking about your own growth. You're thinking about how can you make yourself better. But even when you treating and serving the elderly, you learn that you offer a service that is valuable to the elderly. And when you are young, you'd be like, oh, I don't think I provide any service or any level of worth to the community. But when you come work for long-term care, you add worth to the community. You add a sense of ability to change the way the community functions. So you got someone who hasn't really discovered their talent yet. I always find like it's someone who comes in like a dishwasher and like, oh, I just wash dishes, and I'll bring them on to the culinary side, and I was like, hey, maybe start like around this time of year work on a gingerbread house, and they learn that they have talents that are hidden talents that they didn't know they had before, or waiting tables and things like that, and be able to service the residents that way, and maybe to understand the level of service and how to go out about feeding our residents and things like that. It's just all about learning.
Sai, anybody who's watching this interview knows that you're a very profound human being. You're very self-aware for being a young person.
Thank you.
Tell me how long-term care has changed you in any way, the way you approach your family or your community or maybe your mindset.
Well, it really changed me. I grew up with, I have a big family, but we didn't grow up in the same home. That's kind of my experience, growing up. So me going and working in long-term care, it actually gave me the addition to kind of have that family atmosphere. And then as I started to have my own family, I kind of added some of those values to my own household. I work with a lot of, seniors who are like, really family oriented. And the things they tell you, the values and things they brought to their family, and the values they brought to their marriages and things like that, and why they work and stuff like that. So I wanted to add that to my growth and my family and growing our household and things like that. So it definitely touched me, definitely changed the way I think about family.
The next question might be a little bit hard for you to answer, Sai, as we start to wrap up. And the reason I say it's hard to answer is because I find long-term care people are like religious people. They're humble. It's hard for to talk about the great things that they do and the great people that they are. So I'm going to ask you to take off your humble hat and tell me something you're really proud of that you've done in the last 1, 2, 3 years. And it could be I hired somebody. It could be a day that no one saw what you did and you did something differently, or a shift that you had to cover and it changed the way that you felt about your team.
Well, in the last 10 years, I've worked with a lot of people who came into me at an entry-level position like a host or a waiter or a server or a busser, and I had an opportunity to change the way they view life. I had taught them skills and talents for them to grow. In Delaware alone, I had probably about 4 assistants and dining room managers who now are food and beverage directors. So that tells me that the skills that they learn from me, that they go on and do bigger and better things. I always believe that Shipley is the breeding ground for talent. And I just believe that our residents are just totally different from any other community because they generally care. It's just a lot. But that's definitely one of those tough things that, taking off that humble hat and really tooting your own horn, it's kind of hard. It's really hard.
Sai, I've loved having you on the program. I know that any young person who's going to watch your interview is going to want to line up behind you and go to war and take care of America's seniors.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on LTC Heroes. It was a pleasure to meet you here in Delaware.
Well, thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. Thank you.